Welcome to Humans of Readability. My name is Sylvain Kalash. I'm the head of the Rootly AI Labs and your host for today. In this episode, we are speaking with Eduardo Ordax, who is a principal GTM GenAI at AWS. Let's get started. Eduardo, can you briefly share with us what you are doing today and how you got into AI?
First of all, I'm a computer scientist, right? Or better said, computer engineer. There is a lot of discussion about if it should be computer science or not. But anyway, I've been working in this space for such a long time. But probably it was around 8 to 10 years ago when I was working at Vodafone by that time. This is a big, a telco company. I started to, work around, it was not AI by that time. It was more like data, big data, analytics, and so on. And from there, I just directly jump into this world of AI. I've been working for a very short period of time when we didn't have vibe coding. I was working as a data scientist as well. But me and the code, we never were very good friends. I'm not very good at coding. With vibe coding, it's a different thing, right? And I've been working for the last almost 4 years at AWS, enjoying a lot, working with companies, customers, startups, all over the world, trying to help them, to liberate artificial intelligence. Again, it was a bit different 2 to 3 years ago. Right now, it seems like everything it's becoming AI. But yeah, that's my story.
Just for context, Vodafone is one of the largest telco company in Europe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Eduardo, you work now. You help a lot of companies adopting AI. What are the main challenges that your customers are facing?
There are a lot, to be honest. I think we have more challenges that any other thing, but to be honest, most of the times I'm seeing the same pattern across most of the customers. Of course, it depends on the customer. There are customers that they are very mature, or they are coming from sectors where they have invested a lot about data strategy, and so on. But if we take holistic approach, I would say the biggest challenge it's about people. And by people I mean culture in general, right? I think AI is going to change in many different ways how we are doing business. And we are still using AI for the traditional business model. And I think that's a mistake, right? Because what we're trying to do is okay, we didn't have AI. Now we are putting their AI, but we keep the same business model. And doesn't work, or at least the business value that is going to bring, it's so small, right? So I think it's about, changing the culture, how we approach the problems. Still, many people, denies that, hey, AI is just another trend, or people is not well prepared in terms of skills and so on, or even the company, they just want to put their AI as if AI will be the end goal. And I always say the same thing. Doesn't matter, or I just don't care if it's AI or it's another different technology. As long as it works, it should be fine, right? So I think right now that's the biggest problem. And it's not about even, a sponsorship by the, C-level across the company. I remember 2 to 3 years ago, I was complaining all the time because, CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, they were not sponsoring this kind of, approaches, right? And I always say that you need to follow top-down strategy. Right now, it seems like, everyone wants to be AI first, or they want to be an AI company. So they've got this complete, instruction by the top level saying hey, we need to do AI, we need to do AI. So it's not a problem about the sponsorship, but still, if you don't have the budget, if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the mentality, doesn't care that you want to be AI first. So I think the big problem right now, it's in terms of people, culture, and, trying to follow same traditional business models for a technology that it's completely new and it's revolutionary. I think it's more like a change of mindset, because with AI, the things works in a completely different manner. So if I have to choose one of these lot of many different challenges that I'm seeing right now, because of course there are many others, I would say it's culture.
And you speak a lot about kind of companies and C-level seeing AI and using it with kind of outdated business model. Do you have a specific example to kind of illustrate what you mean?
Let's say, for example, right now with AI agents, right? Everyone wants to implement AI agents. And I think it's great because they can automate so many different things. How you serve your customers. You can use AI agents to automate customer support, or you can use agents, to automate internal business processes. So there are many different applications, right? But the problem is like AI by default, it's a non-deterministic technology, right? That's when I say that, like they are still using all traditional business models. So in many ways, they don't, like go all in with AI because people say like, hey, yeah, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. 1 or 2% of the times I'm not sure about the answer. It may hallucinate. But that's how it works. And this is not going to change. At least it's not going to change in the short term, right? So of course they sometimes, like mess up things, but the same that we do, right? I mean, like, we used to fail a lot. Actually, I would say like we even fail in terms of like very specific processes. We fail more than AI. So if you are, for example, automating customer support, you need to keep in mind that like it's going to fail from time to time. So the problem is like when you try to put both technologies working at the same time, like the old way and the new way, and you say like, hey, it's not bringing enough business value. But it's because of that, right? Because you are trying to replace things and it's not working. So, and this is just one simple example, right? But it's that point that you need to change your mindset because this technology is going to work in a completely different manner.
Right, makes ton of sense. I think the podcast is a lot about reliability, and as you say, GenAI is not bulletproof. It's non-deterministic by nature, and so are humans, right? And as you say, like humans are
Correct.
failing, right? Right? We are making mistakes. I think the key here is in this industry, we always say, hey, failing is not necessarily an issue as long as you learn from it. And so I think you can apply the same principle to GenAI. When a GenAI is not behaving as you want, well, learn from it and try to guide the system to make it right the next time. One of the beauty and maybe the curse of GenAI is that the technology is so powerful that it's very easy to put together like a prototypes and have this wow effect. Now we've heard a lot of companies struggling to go from the prototype to production. What are your recommendations here?
You're absolutely right. And it's funny because I remember a couple of years back, we were talking about the same thing. Like, hey, don't worry, it's fine. We need to experiment. This is going to be the year of experimentation. And next year is going to be the time, like to move to production. So the year later, we're telling, it's still fine. We still need to, like experiment because, like a lot of new technologies that are coming. And now it was about RAG. So yeah, next year we'll go into production. And then the new year arrived and it was the same story. Like, hey, but now we have agents, right? So we need to experiment with the agents. So now 2026 is going to be the year of going into production. So what's going on there, right? So one of the reasons is what we are saying, like technology is evolving continuously, right? So what you were building 2 years ago needs to be updated because you have, I don't know, better models, you have agents, you have new things, you have memory, you have tool use, you have computer use, you have many different things, right? So you try to adapt to the new technology and moving into production. It's the this full illusion of like using APIs. This is not new either. With traditional machine learning, I remember like how easy it was to like take a data set, building your pipeline, your data pipeline. Everything seems to be super manual, doing the feature engineering. And then like it was quite hard to deploy a model. And we usually say like, hey, actually the model itself, it was not the real complicated part. And this is when like all the discussion around MLOps that we were talking like, hey, the model is just a very small piece of the cake. You had, like monitoring, observability, feature engineering, data pipelines, model retraining, model evaluation, model. So you had all these things. And generative AI, it's pretty much the same thing. We put the LLM in the middle of everything, but it's still a very small part. And every new month or every a couple of months, new things that are coming. Memory is a good example, right? I mean, like we have not talked about memory 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. It's completely new thing. So how you plugging into your solution right now using memory, for example. So it's about, like orchestrating many different components together. And because we have been so focused on, like on the LLM or the experiment and so on, we were missing these pieces, right? So which are my recommendation? I think the first thing is about, like stop, focusing too much on the LLMs and technology itself and start, focusing more on, like on the business value or in the value of what you are trying to build. And to be honest, it's not even about technology, it's about professionals. If you take a look right now to, open vacancies across OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, Cohere, Hugging Face, all these companies, they are, hiring forward deploy engineers, FDEs, right? An FDE is essentially focused on that. How you take a solution and you put into production. So that requires knowledge about, the one that is coming from release engineers, from DevOps, from ML engineers, from solution architects, from data engineers. So you need to agglutinate all together to make sure that it's going to work into production. I think that's the biggest challenge right now. And that's why, still not, we are not seeing many things. And even the problem is and this is, I think this is a bit different across different regions, right? But essentially, I already see many things in production, but it's still at a very small scale. So for me, it's not even moving into production, because if you move into production in a very limited scope, you can handle it. The problem is when you need to move into production, I don't know, not just 5 agents, you need to move into production 500 agents. Moving into production reliably at the scale, it's a different thing. And you need to use, again, as I was saying, people is key, but also technology. You need to use many different technology, and you cannot just, or you need to avoid this vendor lock-in by using, many different alternatives in terms of LLMs, in terms of databases, in terms of, you need to have flexibility, because things, they are evolving super fast. And right now it seems like, hey, Google is dead. Now Google is leading. OpenAI is dead. Now OpenAI is leading again. So Anthropic is dead. Anthropic is leading. And this is what is going to happen at least for the next few years. So you need to live with that. So I will say it's, focusing about these kind of professionals that they know pretty well how to put things into production reliably. Make sure you have the technology, and make sure you have, the process well defined to say okay, and it's again coming to the culture problem, right? This is going to change. I mean, your old process, in this case, it's already dead. And you have to live where you have a new solution based on agents that probably it will, or it won't work well in some situations, but you need to live with it. Yeah.
Recently, a few months ago, I had the opportunity to moderate an MLOps conversation at SRECon, and we had some of the best mind in the LLM space around the table. And kind of the takeaway was hey, no one really knows how to do it, right. Things are shifting all the time, as you just mentioned. And a recent interview from Andre Kaparsi, he said that, hey, it's going to take probably a decade to get to the level of readability that we are used with regular web application. And the ground is moving, and each line of readability is at least as much work as the previous 9, and it takes a while to get there. And yeah, so as you said, it's moving ground. You need to focus on the basics and trust the process.
Correct.
One thing that I'd like to ask you is, a lot of our listeners here are used, and most of us are used to build pipeline and architecture for a web application. Do you think there is a main difference when you architecture, around an LLM, a non-deterministic component? Do you think there is something drastically different to address, or on the opposite side, do you think it's very similar?
You mean if you are trying to build an LLM, right? I think it's still very challenging, because, when you are building, for example, a website, let's say you're building a website, right? More or less, it's very clear what you are trying to achieve. The problem with LLMs is we are not able yet to answer many things about how they work. And I think that's the biggest problem right now. If you ask to, or even when you listen to, researchers or folks from, Anthropic, OpenAI, they say hey, we were testing it and it started, doing these kind of weird things that we are not even able to explain. I think that's the biggest challenge, and that's also the problem when using AI to code, right? For me, it's great using AI to code, because as I was saying before, in my mind, it's very clear what I'm trying to build. But I never was so good, by writing code. I hate the syntax. I hate the process, whatever, right? So AI now, it's great. But in terms of scalability, it's a bit challenging, because, as soon as you are relying too much on AI, you are losing control over the things that you are building. And that's the biggest problem. I mean, if you're writing all the code, if you're using AI to write code to say okay, I'm protein, I'm doing this, I'm writing this function, but I'm have control about all the things that I'm doing. If you just leverage too much AI and it's started, creating different classes, dependencies, that you lose the control. I think this is where, the problem starts, because it's going to work in that specific situation. But as soon as you want to change something, it's becoming a chaos, right? So I think that's the main difference. When you are trying to build an application, more or less, what you are trying to build. You have the button, you have the webs, whatever, right? You have the interface. It's pretty much clear, right? And you know how this is going to work. Okay, if I click here, it's going to happen this or that, or I'm connecting this database. When, training LLMs, I mean, we know some of the rules of how they work, through these different architectures, even if it's transformer, mixture of expert, whatever. But we don't know how this is going to behave. And that's why, all the discussion around, scaling laws. That's why many people is saying hey, we are sure scaling laws, they are going to work. And we can start, stretching this approach, while others, they're saying okay, doesn't make sense anymore. And this is because nobody clearly knows how they work and how the neural networks, they are going to behave behind the scenes. So I think that's the biggest challenge, that, take us again to the problem of, this non-deterministic situation, but also how they run across, a different, GPUs, because, as soon as you're having the model working on different GPUs, this non-deterministic approach becomes more exponential, right? Because the randomness, it's bigger. So I think that's another challenge.
So you work with a lot of different sizes of companies, and if you look at LinkedIn, there is a lot of professional or sometimes CEOs who are bragging about how advanced their company are, and I think it's hard for many of us to see what's hype from what's the truth. In your experience, have you seen maybe sizes of type of company who are more successful at iteration than others? Can you share a little bit about that?
So what I can tell you right now, and again, it depends on, how the company has been built. Probably, if we take a look to what we call digital natives, right? So companies that they have been built based on the cloud wave, where they have been built, on top of, cloud. So they have inherited much better, these new technologies. But if you ask me about, vertical, I don't think it's even about the size of the company. Of course, the bigger, the more challenging, because you have a lot of silos. When we're coming back to culture problem, you probably need to define the new structure of the company, because, AI belongs a lot to business, to IT, to technology. But what I would say right now is software companies. So the companies that they are building software, they are, adopting AI quite successfully. And it's because, and this is the difference. They are not using AI as a goal. They are using AI as a way to improve their products. So right now, for example, if you're using Salesforce, let's say you're using Salesforce, right? You don't need to know that it's using AI behind the scenes. It's just your experience by using Salesforce. It's becoming, easier, smoother, right? So any software company that they're using AI not only to build the product, but AI built on top of the product, they're being super successful because they're using it at the scale. So you don't need to know even if it's AI or not. That's why I say that the biggest opportunity right now in terms of AI is not on the LLM layer, it's on the application layer, because this is when you can add a lot of value. So it's like out of the box, I'm giving you something to build with a new tool or a new service. Don't care if it's AI or not, right? So I will say right now, software companies, they're adopting AI amazingly. I see many companies all over the world. I'm here based in Spain. Yesterday I was talking to many software companies, but I think all over the world, software companies, they are doing great. Of course, the other segment, it's startups, but it's by nature, right? So startups, they are building with AI. So they're doing it great. And one aspect that, I've seen across many big enterprises. So companies that comes from, more traditional sectors, let's say financial sector, insurance, healthcare, all these companies, they have invested a lot on data. And by data, I mean on hiring the professionals to work with the data stewards, data governance, data engineers. They have built the pipeline. They have built a strategy on top of the data. They have already their data lake, how to ingest data, how to build all these things. So for them, moving from data into AI, it's very natural. So I always say the same thing, the output of what you build is going to be as good as your data is. I mean, anyone can use AI. It's not a challenge right now to use AI. But again, if you don't have real good data to make the difference, you're wasting the time. So all these companies from healthcare, financial sector, they are doing pretty great. And we can see, like many examples from, like big pharma companies, how they are using AI to, like accelerate the research, to launch new medicines or so on. So I think that that will be the other sector. So software companies, startups, traditional sectors, and of course, like digital natives, companies that has been built on top of the cloud, on the internet. So for these companies, it's very natural as well to keep building with AI.
Yeah, again, we are coming back to the foundation, having strong foundation to build on top of it. And in some ways, like I speak with a lot of reliability practitioners, SREs, DevOps practitioners, platform engineers. And when I go to conferences, one thing I like to do is ask everyone, hey, like what's the latest tool that you've added to your toolbox? Anything cool with AI? And of course, you get like the windsurf and Claude and whatnot. But I've been surprised by basically how little new tools like AI-based tool getting into developer toolbox. And what they will say is that, hey, yeah, like I like to use Datadog, AI feature or Rootly AI feature. And most of the time, it's basically already strong product that have been delivering value to their users. And as you said, they just use AI as a way to improve their product. It's nothing like kind of groundbreaking, but it makes the experience better,
Correct.
right? And so, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this new breed of startups that are all really AI centric, will they really manage to come up with like, a true value proposition for their users that's going to turn their business into something successful? I think it's something yet to be seen. I mean, of course, there are AI companies that are succeeding, but I think there is not that many of them compared to the investment that's being made, I would argue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%.
Eduardo, when I ask you what are the challenges for companies, you spoke a lot about the humans being one of the main blocker or challenge. And I think a lot of professionals today, they feel behind the curve. They're like, oh, I'm behind, I'm not as proficient as I would like to be. What do you think about this, and what's your advice to them?
So you're right. I always, point people to this report by the World Economic Forum. They were talking about the future of jobs, right? And they were saying like, yeah, there are going to be like, like a lot of jobs that are going to be removed, but there will be also new opportunities because new roles are coming. But I'm not going to focus on those two different cohorts. I'm going to focus on the one that is in the middle. And it's talking about, like probably 80 or 90% of the current roles that they're going to evolve over time. So what we are doing today, probably in 5 years' time, is going to be different. And almost every day, I get many messages about people like, hey, I want to jump into AI. I don't want to feel that I'm staying behind. What do you recommend? And so on. So I think, like technology in general, AI in particular, is going to be a key element of our lives. So the same that, like everyone knows how to use the internet, how to use a personal computer, I think everyone is going to be kind of a developer in the future. Let me phrase it because, like it may sound kind of crazy, right? But I think the time of creating new products is going to be accelerated like crazy because it's easier to build new product. It's easy to update new product. It's easy to, like to see much faster and much better. And because you have more of the sales force of people building things is going to be higher, right? So when I'm saying like everyone becomes a developer, what I'm saying like everyone is going to be in a position more or less that they can build something. It's not going to be a final product. It can be a prototype. It can be design. But, like the gap between people building things and the people designing things is going to get, like thinner and thinner and thinner, right? So I think it's going to be one of the big changes. So I always say the same thing for everyone. Like it's never late to learn how to use these things. So you can learn how to use the tools, that it's fine. You can learn how to, or try to learn to understand how these technologies works behind the scenes. But what it's sure is in the future, your job is going to be different. So you need to know how to use these new services that they're using, again, AI behind the scenes. So I'm sure about my job and I'm sure about every single job in the future. So that's why, like we need to understand that times have changed. And also the adoption pace is quite faster. So, for example, like the internet or, like personal computers, it took around, like 50 years. The internet, it was like, I don't know, 30 years. Smartphones, it was, like a bit faster. With AI, it's much, much, much faster. That's why you cannot just, take a lot of time, because I feel the same thing. I take a look back to the last year and I see like, okay, many of the things I'm talking about right now, they are completely new. So if you are out for a month, you are completely out of the business, right? So that's why it's super important for everyone to, know the basics about, even coding. I mean, I think by coding is great from the point of view that, it can help you to at least to articulate new things. And that's my advice for almost everyone right now who is, moving in this space.
Yeah, at the end of the day, just another tool. But as you just mentioned, there is kind of a timeline where adoption timeline that is, shortened compared to
Correct.
ways of technologies. Technology in general has been accelerating our world, and AI just another wave. Well, that's exciting time we are living in, but also bring a lot of uncertainty, and humans don't like uncertainty. Eduardo, if people want to get in touch and find you on the internet, where should they go?
I'm always super responsive for LinkedIn. Sometimes it may take a bit of time, couple of days or 3 to answer the messages. But, if people is reaching out to me on LinkedIn, I always answer. Sometimes, the answer is a bit more complicated and it's just not, a single answer. But I mean, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Eduardo Ordax. I will be always more than open to, have a conversation. And I really love it because right now I know people all over the world and it's great to discuss with people around AI and so on. So they can reach me there and I will be more than happy. Yeah.
LinkedIn. And also maybe they can find you in person, right? You are traveling quite a bit for developers.
Wow. I mean, if they come to Spain, I'm based out of Madrid. So if they come to Spain, I'm always here. But yeah, I'm traveling all over the world. I think this year I've been on, in almost all the continents with the exception of Pacific. So I mean, I'm touring to the US, I'm touring around Europe most of the time. I'm going to the Middle East as well very often. So almost everywhere, yeah.
So lot of places where people can find you. Eduardo, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks. It was super great and looking forward for another time.